Welcome to Valley News Now. I'm Adam Shalfo, joined by Jack Michaels. Jack, so happy to have you joining me in the studio today. How's it going?
Thanks for letting me into your home. I know we've hung out in my home at Newman Outdoor Field. The booth, this is fantastic. Love talking RedHawks, and it's great to see you.
It's great to see you. Yeah, my home field this time, but we'll call it. It's a friendly confines.
You have a real. Where are the snacks? What are the Butterfingers?
Yeah, well, we already got the coffee. We'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can do. Not the concession stand. We're working on buy one get one free hot dog night at Valley News Now.
Valley News Now. Well, I know that you already have a better coffee maker than I've been around, so you're already ahead of the game.
Well, it's a long season. Well, you guys got time to catch up.
Yeah, we're only in June right now.
Yeah, but it's kind of crazy to believe that we already are in June. The season just getting underway, and we'll get into all the nuts and bolts. First thing I want to take a look at is the standings. Let's pull up these standings right here. And so this is as of yesterday. The RedHawks supposed to play tonight. We'll see about the weather. If you look here, just below Sioux Falls, 13-8, and a pretty incredible balance. And we talk about it all the time, Jack, how deep this league really is. Chris Coast always talks about how deep this league is. And what do you think of the landscape in general, the whole association, but in particular the West?
Well, it's funny going back over the years. You could almost, some of those names, you see Sioux Falls there, you see Sioux City at the bottom, you see Lincoln kind of hovering, Winnipeg kind of middle pack hovering. And if you look back at the history of the league, with all due respect to the Canaries, oftentimes they would be at the bottom of that West Division standing. Sioux City might be a little bit higher because they've always had big arms. Kansas City, obviously they have flexed muscle in recent years, and they'd normally be firmly supplanted at the top, along with the RedHawks that have had great success and so on and so forth. But now what we're seeing, Adam, and it started last year, the Sioux Falls Canaries. Last year, we started to see them really come on, made the postseason. Sioux Falls has kept that brand going. They brought a lot of players back. So they have a lot of return players. Ty Culbreth is a veteran left-handed pitcher, also serves as their pitching coach. They got enough bats to get it done. They've got some arms. So we see Sioux Falls at the top of the West. Winnipeg has been, gone through a different manager this year. I think, they've lost some pieces over the years. But they're such a good organization that they started off losing their first 4. They were down in Cleburne, and then they put up 19 runs and scored 25 unanswered. Then they finally got home, and we started seeing some wins. We see Winnipeg rise up. Sioux City is in that spot, and that's who the RedHawks have this year. The X's are struggling a little bit early on. Steve Montgomery, their manager, former RedHawks pitcher and pitching coach, they'll figure it out. They might be a little thin as far as run production, but they always seem to have arms. Lincoln, we've seen them enough now. A couple series already with Lincoln, the RedHawks have. They just swept Lincoln in Lincoln. Again, they got talent, maybe not as depth in some of the pitching departments, and so on and so forth. So when we just look at these standings here, and Kane County, well-managed team, good club right there out of Chicago, they're going to be there. Cleburne's got arms the size of Popeye out of their bullpen. So if you're trailing Cleburne late, they're going to probably beat you. Dogs have been around under new management. Jeff Isom, also former RedHawk pitcher. Kind of a theme right here, but that's good. So I look at the standings, and we're 22, 23, whatever games deep into the season. So you're a little over 20% of the season gone. And Sioux Falls is where I'm not shocked where they are. It's a good club. RedHawks got them coming up here shortly. Fargo-Moorhead, despite some injury and this and that, have found ways to win games. Already been on a big 10-day road trip and came back 7-3 on that 10-game road trip. So that helps. Ironically, RedHawks at home lost their first home series of the year to Lincoln. They've been able to find ways to get wins. So what we're seeing is a little, not separation yet, but we're seeing, the RedHawks find themselves, when they get full and hitting on all cylinders, they got a lot of young arms. They've had a little injury, a little this, little that. When they get their team together by midway point, I think you're going to see that team hit its stride.
And it seemed like they definitely had a pretty good series against Milwaukee. I was at 2 of those games in person, and I'll tell you that first one looked a little scary. The Milkmen, always a dangerous team, and they always have a lot of good bats. And so that Friday night game, Milwaukee kind of having their way with Fargo-Moorhead. But then talk about the bounce back,
Yeah.
stringing a couple wins together, and that's always good. I want to call that one a rivalry series at this point.
And Milwaukee has been, as much as you'd think, built-in rivalries, Winnipeg, the relationship now with Kansas City that the RedHawks have had, that's becoming a little bit of this no love lost between these two clubs. But Milwaukee has had that too in the teams. You're right, any team, and Milwaukee's had arms too, but you look at bats like Jose Sermo and some of the bats that they have that are even slow getting going. I was concerned too, but boy, good pitching. Sometimes that tends to stop some of those bats. You can pitch it and you can play defense, and the RedHawks were able to get their bats going too. So yeah, Friday night's game, and then they turn around. And Tyler Grauer was really special in his outing. Evan Alexander in that leadoff spot has been able to knock the ball over the fence a little bit. You've got enough bats to go. They're clanging balls. Ismael Alcantara is getting on base, stealing bases. Dylan Thomas, who's a veteran guy, as we see there. So the RedHawks found what they need to do. But it starts with pitching, and they kind of set the tone and were able to get some key hits. Not the very least, this year already, Adam, at Newman Outdoor Field, and I wonder how rare it is. I don't know. I think it's probably happened a lot. But in your first professional game, having an at bat, having a pro hit a home run. It happened when Lincoln was in town to start the season. A guy named Jack Dragum, in his first pro at bat, hit a home run. And I thought, wow, we just saw something we probably haven't seen too much over the years. And then C.J. Valdez, the RedHawks signed this young man at Purdue, out of Purdue, and rookie guy, first at bat, hits a 2-run home run.
And didn't Schreiber do that last year? Am I nuts?
I think you're right.
Schreiber did that as well.
Schreiber, that's right. I think you're right. We've seen a little bit of, so maybe it's not that uncommon. I think 100 people have done it, but baseball's been around for a while. But Valdez brings up a good point because, Nick Novak claimed off waivers there by Chicago. So now the RedHawks needed to fill in somebody at third base. So to have a rookie come in and contribute defensively and homers he did against Milwaukee was just huge. Peter Brookshine, a little hamstring, so now you're asking Chase McDaniels to come in, a rookie out of Southwest Minnesota State, and fill in and get the job done. Catching department, Juan Fernandez until he gets back and good to go. You had Dakota Phillips back there. Well, he suffers I don't know if there's a mild concussion, but I suppose there is, and he had one of those. And so now you need a catcher. Skip it, they bring another guy in. So the RedHawks are literally a half game out of first place and are doing it without probably a lot of the guys that they're expecting to play every day. And to Chris Coast and his staff, they've done a great job.
They've definitely done a great job with that depth. And it actually does raise a question for me. One of the guys I was expecting to see a lot of this year and wound up hardly seeing any of all. What happened with Yoelqui Cespedes?
Yeah, and just came out. We knew that Yoelqui had, he's not gonna hit for average. There are gonna be some strikeouts on that. And the problem with where the situation you have in the American Association, where these guys have played in Mexico and are not far removed from seeing live pitching, is that you don't have 2 weeks or a month to prepare to see live pitching, get your swings down and follow that ball into your barrel and all that. And Yoelqui, I think out of the gate, just unfortunately for him, wasn't producing a lot of barrels. So when that happens, this is a tough business because you almost have to. What have you done for me lately? You got to come in. Can you produce? And go. So it's one of those things.
Well, it's tough to stay in the game for anybody. But. We'll see. It seems like a lot of other people have stepped up, though. And you brought up Alcantara, and this guy is just absolutely ripping. I believe he's near the top in stolen bases in the league, putting bats on balls, doing everything. Exciting player, solid fielder. What do you think of his contribution?
I love Izzy. He's a great Dodger farmhand, a great man to have on the club. And how many times is your guy that's been labeled in that 3-4, that 4 spot, how many times your cleanup hitter lead you in stolen bases? So, he's got 17 stolen bases on the year. Ismael Alcantara. And by the way, it took like 3 weeks for everybody to go, okay, now exactly how do we say your name? Is it Alcantara? Is it Alcantara? Is it Alcantara? You know, so I was saying, Alcantara, and trying to get my Spanish flow going on him.
Sure.
And we were in Sioux Falls, and I said, Izzy, am I saying your name right? He goes, it's Alcantara.
Alcantara.
And I'm like, well, there, Ismael Alcantara. So I'm like, all right, here we are, a couple weeks into the season. I'm just getting that all right. But yeah, better get his name right. He popped into me the other day and he said, what is the stolen base record in the American Association? And I had to do a double thought. I said, well, it can't be too high. You play 100 games. I had this 50 in my head, maybe 53. And I forgot Brian Torres, Milwaukee, stole like 71 bases a year ago. And you implement this pitch clock, and it's changed that stolen base mark because, plus with the disengagement rules, you only go a couple of times. So we're seeing quick, boom, boom. We're seeing that run game more into play now. And Izzy is a great part of that. He has 17 stolen bases.
So is he gunning for it? Is that what you're telling me?
He's gunning for it. And then internally, now, of course, there's great competition. Internally, Evan Alexander wants that too.
Yeah, well, when I was talking to Devin yesterday, it's like, and it's crazy, Evan's not at the top of the list.
That's right.
That's a little twin dragon.
So you come out to Newman Outdoor Field, either of those two get on, there's a good chance they're going to probably try to go 90 feet. A, to help the team win, to get in a position to score. But B, there's that inner battle going on between Evan Alexander and Ismael Alcantara. Now, from where Alexander is falling short to Izzy in stolen bases, Evan's power numbers are getting a little bit bigger so Alexander's lifting the ball out, and he's looking at a double-digit home run. Knocking on wood. He's looking at a double-digit home run season if he continues to barrel balls like that.
Well, his powers continue to improve every single year he's been with the RedHawks, and so no exception this year. And do you know? Is he still? I remember he was working with some of the hitting coaches. Some other members of the team. I want to say might have been Silviano's, but he was starting to really get the hang of it.
Well, and Evan I'd imagine Evan in a different life would have been like an Einstein-ish on how do I perfect this molecule, and this science kind of in a beaker going, it doesn't taste just right. I'm going to have to add this, and that's like Evan. He can go 3 for 4 and worry about the one where he didn't get a base knock or didn't hit the ball hard. Going, I could have been 4 for 4. I would have been. So Evan is constantly his own worst critic. But you look at the production that Alexander has this year in runs scored. Average might be not where he wants it, but runs scored, power numbers, slugging percentage, runs driven in, stolen bases. And when you look at the overall picture of Evan Alexander, he's been a key contributor and at the top of that lineup. So it's very good. I love it because his grandma and grandpa tune in. And so whenever he hits a home run, I get into the whole track it down Marge. I always finish that with, the Frisco Kid, and they're dancing in the streets of Frisco. Big shout out to G-Mom, and Pop is what he calls
him.
That's
amazing.
So his mama tunes in. So I'm a fan of that. The lineup is great. I like the lineup, and these young guys coming in. We got a few Crookston boys in there now, from the position side and the pitching side. So we're a little Crookston South right now, which isn't a bad place to be.
No, not at all. They have produced a lot of good players. And another good player right now, I've been trying to get the nickname to catch on for Kona Quiggle.
Oh, what do you got?
The Big Wave.
The Big Wave.
The Big Wave, because there's the
I'm going to have a cup of coffee and think about that.
The Kona Big Wave. But, it's got to get the Jack Michael seal of approval, but I've been trying
I love
to
it,
get
Adam.
The Big Wave.
I like
going
that.
Deep.
We may have to implement the Big Wave Kona. I have a daughter in Hawaii. I know about yes, that's I might have to do that because it's a name that screams Kona. And I haven't asked him this. Great human being, as you know. I wonder what his nicknames have been over the years.
Yeah.
Q, I'd imagine.
Because I'll be down their third base side, and I'll be yelling,
Big Wave.
Big Wave.
I like, and the way he dives for balls in the outfield and slides and catches, almost surfing like.
Yeah, it's graceful.
The Big Wave, Kona Quiggle. Another great addition, by the way, to the RedHawks team. Another left-handed bat.
Kidding.
I was telling a young announcer, new in the league, about Newman Outdoor Field, designed after Yankee Stadium, the influence of Roger Maris. I said, and don't think like this is by happenstance that the RedHawks always have a number of good left-handed batters, you know, because that 314 down the line, that, you know, whether it be Jeff Bittiger puts these together, but all the way back to the start, you always had left-handed batters that could jerk a ball out to right field because that porch down the line, and you have that big left center field alley. So the RedHawks have always had a center fielder, left fielder combination that could probably have some speed, get to that alley out there. And now you see it with the big wave in center. Thank you very much. And Evan Alexander in left, two guys that can just cover all that turf. And then you got Alcantara in right field with the big cannon of an arm and doing what he does. So that outfield that the RedHawks have with the big wave and Izzy and the Frisco kid, now we're throwing nicknames in all over the place.
I love it. It's great.
Pretty good stuff. The big wave.
Let's take a look at the upcoming schedule here, and it looks like it could be a challenging little stretch. All right, so at the top here, we already got wins over Milwaukee, so they take 2 or 3 in that series. Sioux City coming to town, and then here's the one that always trips me up. I know this is Kansas City. I always want to think it's Kane County. Either would be really tough, but the defending champs on the road, and back to Sioux City, and then Sioux Falls, and then you got, you know, maybe they can get some revenge with the Doc Hounds. Winnipeg, always a tough series, no matter the records. But this is a tough little stretch here. The RedHawks should hopefully be able to take care of business against Sioux City, and then things get pretty intense. Yeah,
this is, and then you got the X's here, as you see. So I look at this month of June, and you're right. You better take care of business at home against the Explorers, because at Legends Field in Kansas City, you know, there could be a number of things. It could be 1,000 degrees at one time. You could have, you know, it's a vast stadium. It's beautiful. We'll see how full it is. You feel like the visitor in Kansas City. And plus, the RedHawks have seen not only them walk the RedHawks off in playoffs, but also the RedHawks have success on their field. You know, that's just a weekend that is going to be crazy. And so that's tough out of the gate. Monday is an off day, the 10th, and then you're at Sioux City, midweek game. Are there going to be a lot of people there? Is there going to be fewer crowd? You have to generate your own, you know, action. And then at Sioux Falls, we just talked about Sioux Falls at the start of the show. How tough it is to the Canaries are this year, and you know, look what they just did to the RedHawks last time they're at the Birdcage in Sioux Falls. The Canaries took 2 or 3. So yeah, you better take care of Sioux City at home. Then you've got that 9-gamer with a mix there with an off day, but. Taking a series at Kansas City is not easy.
No,
you're at Sioux City. You hope you can maybe get that series. Sioux Falls, I think, is a coin toss, and then you come back against Lake Country before you go north of the border in Winnipeg and finish up at home. So June, you know, you got 3, 6, 9, maybe a dozen games remaining at home in June. Boy, if you can pop 8 to 9 of those games at home, and now you're talking about where you're in the, you know, the mid-20s, you know, you're in the 20 wins, that kind of thing, and then get about 500 of those games on the road, if not more, you're looking at heading into July with a lot of confidence and a little bit of momentum into the month of July. But June's big. June's big.
And I think if there's anything we can learn from last year, you know, the injury bug, it was brutal. Pitchers kept getting called up, but 100 games may seem long,
right?
But it's really not all that long. And if you know, kind of take a shot to the bow at the wrong time, it can really hurt you. And the RedHawks even having to play back into that playoff race. Dare I say, they didn't even start playing their best ball until they were playing in the international tournament. But I feel like they just got to be able to kind of, the storms are always going to be coming. They got to be able to weather them and make sure that they're not in the kind of situation they were in last season when they're fighting in, because they're in good position right now, and they were in good position this time last year.
Right.
But they can't afford to fall back. The league is just way too competitive.
It is, and people might say, well, a loss is a loss, and you can come back from a loss. But you don't know which game in which day of the year that you needed that win. So it's trite to say, but to your point, Adam, every win matters. Last year, the RedHawks finished 2 games above 500 and made the postseason, but there were teams that were tied at the end of the year that
by the skin of their teeth.
But that just got in, so you need a ticket to get into the dance. I get it. You're just trying to get in the postseason, but you also, because this league, when you look at these standings over here, by the end of the year, 100 games in, that team that finishes in first place. So if it ended today, you'd say Sioux Falls would get the option of the top 4. Sioux Falls, the RedHawks, Kansas City, Winnipeg. Sioux Falls would choose who they play first. So are they going to choose Fargo-Moorhead, Kansas City, Winnipeg, blah, 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 blah. Same thing for Kane County, but in it today. So that spot's not a bad spot to be in initially to win the division. That's one of the caveats of winning the division. You choose who you play, and you can kind of set some things up. I think after that, it doesn't matter just who's pitching, but that's the caveat of winning your division. And I don't know what the number is. The RedHawks are 21 games deep, so they have, 79 remaining. Last year, they played 51 and 49. 51 got them in, so they're at 17. What's the number? They're 13 and 8 now. They had 51 wins last year, and that got them in. Does that mean they need 38 more wins? Is that good enough for this year? It's really early to start breaking that down. But if you want to look at math, and usually you get low mid 50s for total wins. Usually is good enough in this league to probably get into the postseason.
Yeah.
So do the math. They're 21 games in. RedHawks have 13 wins. Do they have 40 more wins in them? And if they get to 53, is that enough to get in? If you get to 60, if they get 47 more wins, is that enough to win this division?
Yeah.
So you start looking at that. We're 20% in, but you said just a moment ago, she goes fast.
Yep, and just half a game back behind the Canaries. So a little bit of work to do. A lot of games left to be played. One last look at the schedule before we let you go. So we're supposed to get a ball game tonight. We'll see, though. I know you were a little wet just making your way to the parking lot.
That. I came into your studio. I got my RedHawks windbreaker on.
I thought you were going to need your RedHawks paddle boat at this rate.
Well, we got that game in last week, and it just looked like animals were coming in 2 at a time outside. And,
right.
It's like, are we going to get this in? And the staff did a great job. We had a little bit of delay than played, and the fans stuck and hung. That was great. But, yeah, we've had a little bit of a wet start. Yeah. So hopefully they get this thing in. And it's, at home. And then I always look at I just saw that. I look at Kansas City. If everybody's been, it's on the Kansas side now. It's Kansas City, Kansas. That place can be June hits, it could be just humid. One of the hottest places I've been in the American Association when it's thick is Kansas City. And I don't know I haven't checked the app. We should check with Valley News Live.
Yeah,
we should check that. But in the clubhouse, the RedHawks have the longest walk. It's all the way up the berm and up the hill, and then they come down and go all the way across the diamond into their dugout. You could park a semi truck in the dugout. They're huge dugouts. But Kansas City is just it's a beautiful ballpark. But you could have weather, you could have rain, you could have a twister roll through and then play later. It's a tough place to play. So again, back to this series with Sioux City. Man alive. Get 2 at least.
Yeah.
And the easier way to get 2 is to start with 1 in the first game.
You heard it here first, folks.
Get 2. You can't get to 2 without getting 1.
So the game plan is to win the game.
The game plan is to win the game in front of you.
There you go.
And then the next day, try to do the same thing.
And then the next day,
and then
try to do it again?
That's exactly right. And if you can get to that magic, I always look at 60 as a magic number where you pretty much solidified yourself. But you can't get to 60 till you get to 14.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
We said there was going to be math, the more you know.
Yeah. And, well, that's all for now, Jack. Thanks so much.
Hey, thanks for having me anytime. You know where I'm at.
Sounds good. I'll come to your home next time, and we'll do the Subway series. We'll come up with the name of the series.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that. We'll have a big wave, some shave ice, and enjoy a day.
Sounds great. Thank you guys so much for joining us on RedHawks Weekly. We'll see you next time.